Good evening. This is Beth Drucker, and I'm the president of Go Green Wilmette. We're delighted that you're here to join us for our webinar on decarbonizing your home with smart energy choices. Energy conservation is something we all can do more about, and there's a lot of to learn and new products that can help us with that. The speaker we have tonight is David Weaver. He works with the Citizens Utility Board. I've seen his program before. He provided it for the Go Green Skokie with the Skokie Public Library, and I thought it was great. So we invited him here to Wilmette. However, he is joining us from Virginia, where he is on reserve duty. He spent 10 years with the Marine Corps on active duty. So he does that 1 weekend a month when he's not working for CUB. He works on both policy and outreach for CUB. He's the primary author of their guide to the Inflation Reduction Act. He'll be talking a little bit about this. And he's facilitating their Grow Geo Chicago program. That's about geothermal heat pumps. And they have a group buy program, so we might hear about that tonight. He's also on the board of directors of the Midwest Building Decarbonization Coalition, and he's a member of the Illinois Environmental Council's Young Professionals Board. So we are delighted to have David here with us tonight. He's going to share his screen and present to you his program, and then we'll have a robust Q&A when we're done. Thank you, David. You're on.
Thank you so much, Beth, for the kind words and for inviting me. And everyone else, thank you so much for joining me on a Wednesday evening. I greatly appreciate it. So a little bit about Citizens Utility Board before we get started. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization founded by the state of Illinois in 1983, but no longer a part of the Illinois state government or anything. And our main role is to represent utility ratepayers. So that's everyone on the call tonight. We represent you at the Illinois Commerce Commission that regulates all the utility companies in Illinois, and also at the State House and in the courts, and we also fight for you on the streets, or in this case, on a webinar where we do over 500 events a year, providing education and knowledge about how people can save money on their bills. We also have a really great service, a virtual utility bill clinic. So if you have any questions about your bills, you can shoot us an email at this link, ubc@citizensutilityboard.org, and we'll set you up one-on-one with an expert to go over it. The bottom line is we're an organization that advocates for affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy policies in Illinois. But this is really how I picture us in my head. We're the pesky little dog biting at the heels of the huge utility companies, trying to fight for the ratepayers. Just because we're small, though, doesn't mean we're not able to bring them to the ground on occasion. So today we'll be talking about building decarbonization, a little bit about what it's not, what is sometimes greenwashing with alternative suppliers, energy efficiency, electrification, peak demand control, and renewable energy. So what is building decarbonization? Really the first step to our conversation today. Whenever we can switch our buildings from burning natural gas or using electricity that's from coal or other fossil fuels, we're in the process of building decarbonization, but we need to switch from fossil fuels to renewables, and we need to do so in a way that's affordable for our wallets and affordable for our planet and our carbon footprint. There's a lot of different elements that go into it. But today, we're going to focus on energy efficiency, beneficial electrification, renewable energy, and energy demand management. Future times, or maybe in the Q&A, we can talk about embodied carbon, transportation, and zoning and ordinance, but we're not going to focus on that today. So one question we get, and it goes to the heart of decarbonization, because you can't do it if it's going to cost you a lot of money. We recognize that electrification, while I would love for everyone to make every decision based on what's the best for the planet, we also have our bottom lines we got to be concerned about. And natural gas prices being so high helps really make electrification affordable. Over the last 2 years, we've seen natural gas bills skyrocket, and it's actually been a little bit cheaper over the last few months. But talking to many analysts, over the next 10 years, we expect it to continue to go up. Some of the causes, the Russian invasion of Ukraine has had a huge impact on global natural gas prices. There's been an increased demand after the pandemic, and also extreme weather. If you look at the blizzard this past December that hit us, over 70% of the power plants that shut down due to the cold, that were not able to run, were natural gas power plants. So the myth that natural gas is more reliable isn't necessarily true at all. Particularly if we go back a year to the big issues in Texas with the natural gas mines that were also shut down from the cold. Extreme weather can have a huge impact on natural gas prices. Additionally, one of the reasons why the prices are only going to go up in the future is because people are more and more aware of the dangers of fracking, which is one of the methods to mine natural gas. It's got huge issues for the local environment, particularly causing earthquakes, and potentially poisoning the water supply. And as people are more aware of these issues, they're more likely to fight and resist any new mines. So it's harder and harder to mine for more natural gas. So to move on to what is not decarbonization, we got to talk about alternative retail, electric suppliers, and gas suppliers. Not to spend too much time on this subject because we have a lot to cover today, but alternative suppliers will oftentimes come to you and tell you they might be able to save you money, or sometimes they'll tell you, hey, we are going to charge you a little bit more than ComEd or Nicor Gas, but we're going to be giving you clean energy. Well, there's some problems with this. It's mostly greenwashing in Cub's opinion because there's no transparency. They might tell you that they're helping, provide renewable electricity, but there's no third party that is verifying that they're doing what they're saying, and they're not showing anyone their books. And if they're telling you that they're going to be able to provide you 100% clean electricity, that's just false because of how the grid works. Traditional generation and renewable generation, they both push their electricity to the grid, and then your home or business draws from the grid. You can't choose what electricity you're choosing from the grid. You're just taking from the grid. So if they're telling you they're going to provide you 100% clean electricity, that's a lie. If they're telling you that they're purchasing renewable energy certificates, that could be a good thing. Renewable energy certificates can be great, but they also can be very misleading. It's possible to sell and resell renewable energy certificates. So potentially the certificates that they're purchasing are 20 years old or older. Potentially they're not even going into our grid. So the big issue here is it's not transparent. And if you want to spend an extra nickel or dime per kilowatt hour, I'd say there's a better use of that money to help the planet than doing it through an alternative retail supplier. So what can you do if that's not the answer? Energy efficiency is the first step. The cleanest and the cheapest energy is the energy that you don't use. And statistically, every dollar you spend on a home energy improvement for energy efficiency is going to save you $3 in the long run. I hate to say it, but sometimes we got to spend money to save money or make money. And the first step in this is the home energy assessment, which ComEd and Nicor Gas both offer. And it's a free program where they'll come into your home, walk around, give you advice on how you can better insulate your home or how you can save and improve your energy efficiency. They'll also install LED light bulbs, insulation on your hot water pipes, and a few other things that they'll bring with them for free. They'll also bring with them a few things that aren't free but are heavily discounted, like smart thermostats. However, this is a good program. It's not great. They're not going to do any testing. They're just going to walk around. And sometimes they have 20 jobs in a day. So they're trying to get in and get out and go on to the next job. And it really behooves you to have some questions prepped to really draw them into it. Because once they see that you're excited and you have some good questions, they're going to loosen up and they're going to give you a lot better information. But if that's a good program, the great option is the home energy audit. These are typically cost around $300 to $600, depending on local labor costs in your community. So probably a little bit higher in Wilmette. But the Inflation Reduction Act provides a tax credit of up to $150. That's a tax deduction on if you do get a home energy audit. Sorry, the home energy audit. They're going to come into your home. They're going to test your building envelope. They're going to bring an infrared camera with them. So they're going to be able to show you exactly where you're losing heat or cool, where the heat is coming in the summer. And they're going to be able to give you an itemized list of recommendations on how to improve your energy efficiency by what is going to save you the money the fastest. So they might say, hey, This window, you're losing a lot of heat through it. It'll cost you about this much to replace it, and you'll save this much, on average per year. All the way down to, hey, you could improve your insulation on this wall, but it's only going to save you this much, so it's a lower priority. Really great, recommended. And I have a link on the next slide that has a really great primer where you can determine your game plan before you go into this. You can come up with great questions, and it'll also have a list of certified contractors. Last note is, because of the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed this past August by the federal government, there's no better time for home energy improvements. We're going to talk a lot more about that today. So we already talked about this home energy assessment. They'll also bring with them some smart power strips, which are great, and some aerated faucets and shower heads, which are fantastic as well. This link in red at the bottom of the slide is the link I recommend to read up on, regardless if you're going with the home energy assessment, which is free, or the home energy audit, which will cost you about $500. That'll help you find a good contractor, as well as making sure you're ready for them when they come to your home. There's been some misinformation about light bulbs, so I just wanted to address it real fast. An LED light bulb is not any less bright than a old or traditional light bulb. And additionally, they can save you almost $5 a year, which may not seem like a lot until you think about all the light bulbs in your home. And then that $5 begins to add up quite fast. Another thing I like to bring up is dryer balls. That's the white snowball looking object in the middle of the slide. And I can tell you with full assurance, they make excellent indoor snowballs, and my nieces and nephews can attest to it as well. They're about the size of a snowball. They're made out of wool. Typically, they also sell other types, but they're typically made out of wool, about snowball size. Weigh half a pound, and you throw 6 of them in your dryer, and it spreads your clothes out during the drying process, so they dry faster. And they typically are a little bit less wrinkled, saving you, improving your energy efficiency for your dryer. So the Inflation Reduction Act includes energy efficiency and weatherization tax credits. All consumers, regardless of your income level, can claim a 30% tax credit for the total cost of a qualified project up to $1,200 annually. So up to $150 for the home energy audits, as we just discussed, $500 per doors. It's specifically $250 per exterior door, $600 for windows and skylights, and $600 towards an energy efficient air conditioning unit, electric panel upgrade, or water heater, water boiler upgrade. There's also an additional one-time $2,000 tax credit for upgrading your space or water heaters that does not count towards the $1,200 annually. So for 1 year, for example, in 2023, you get up to $3,200 as a tax credit. I misspoke earlier. I called it a deduction. It is a tax credit, so it counts as you as if you were paying that money or getting that money back. So it's fantastic. How do we electrify our homes? So gas furnace to a heat pump, and we'll talk a lot more about heat pumps, so I'll leave that there. A gas stove to an induction stove, which we'll also go more in depth on, switching from a gas water heater to an electric or heat pump water heater, and then switching from a clothes dryer that's gas operated to an electric operated one. Why do we want to do this? Why is it so important that we electrify? Well, affordability is a key piece, especially when it comes to the rising cost of natural gas. Particularly if you're able to fully electrify your home, you can save hundreds of dollars every year by just getting off of the gas system. Nicor Gas and all the other gas utility companies in the state of Illinois, they crowd fund all their infrastructure improvements and maintenance costs. So if there's a month that you don't burn a single therm of natural gas, they're still going to charge you money for being one of their customers to help them maintain all their infrastructure. So as soon as you can get off of that, you no longer have to pay that fixed cost. And in the state of Illinois, we have some of the highest fixed costs for gas in the entire nation. So that's going to be a significant affordability piece. The next one, and focus of decarbonization, of course, is if we're no longer burning natural gas and using electricity, That's going to help protect our climate. And then next piece, health, which we'll talk a little bit more on when we get to the stove piece. But there's a lot of health concerns with burning natural gas in your home. So affordability, Cub research showed that homeowners who switch from natural gas to air source heat pumps can save a lifetime savings of $24,000 to $47,000. This study was done in Chicago, so it's a nice local example. With the biggest savings being those who were ready to switch. You didn't just replace your furnace last year and then making the switch. Obviously, you wouldn't save as much than if you were going to replace your furnace anyways. But you'll still save money regardless of the time period, just not as much. Looking at the chart on the right, the bottom is the temperature. So moving left to right when it's warmer outside, and moving up to down is how expensive it is. So using a heat pump to heat your home, it takes the heat energy from outside and it moves it into your home. So it's more efficient the warmer it is outside. So as it gets colder, it takes more and more electricity to be able to heat your home to a comfortable level. So you can see starting about 0 degrees, but really about -5, it begins to become cheaper to burn natural gas to heat your home than to use electricity. However, there's only an average of 8 mornings a year in Northern Illinois where it gets below 0. So even if you completely switch to electric heating through a heat pump, and there's going to be about 8 days where it would have been cheaper to burn natural gas, through the entire year, you will have saved money. And in addition, they also sell dual fuel heat pumps. I was just talking to a consumer who in early November purchased a dual fuel heat pump. So his heat pump works until it gets about 20 degrees outside, at which case his furnace element of the heat pump, because it's a system that has both, it starts burning natural gas to heat his home. Comparing his bills this year to last year, he saved 50%. So significant cost affordability there. Geothermal heat pumps are the most efficient system to heat your home. So this chart is showing you exactly that. So looking at this, the gray color in all of these bars is your lighting and other electrical uses that aren't heating and cooling your home. Typically, the largest energy use in anyone's home is heating the space, heating and cooling the space. And that's going to be the red for heating and the blue for cooling. So geothermal heat pumps are pretty cool because they take the heat energy from underground and either bring it into your home or pump the heat in your home and move it underground. One way to think about this is it's not that complicated. We already all have heat pumps in our homes. We can burn natural gas or wood or coal to create heat, but you can't create cold. There's nothing that you can do to create cold. Cold is the absence of heat. So how your refrigerator works is it takes the heat energy in your fridge and it pumps it out. That's why if you put your hand near the bottom of your fridge, and depending on the model of the fridge, you can feel the heat coming out. Some of that heat is the heat that was in your fridge, and even more to that extent for your freezer. You can feel that heat being pumped out. It's more efficient to move heat than it is to create heat, which is why these heat pumps have an advantage. Just like your refrigerator, when your house is hot, it pumps the heat out and moves it outside if it's an air source, or moves it underground if it's geothermal. And then in the winter, it takes the heat energy from outside and brings it into your home. Well, even when it's cold outside, even when it's -20 outside, we all are from Northern Illinois. We know it can be even colder, which means there's still heat energy in the air that your system can move into your home if it's an air source system. Fortunately for geothermal, the ground underneath, several feet underneath, it's a balmy 52 to 58 degrees year round, which means it's very easy for it to take that heat energy and move it into your home. Way more efficient than air source or burning natural gas to create heat. So that's why if you look all the way to the left, the geothermal model, it's more efficient at heating and cooling than any other model. The other bars all the way to the right, oil, which is not very common here, neither is propane. But if you're talking about an 80% efficient natural gas, that's the 5th bar in. That's what most homes in Northern Illinois have. Some of the latest models of furnaces are 93% efficient. And then same thing for the air conditioner. The 5th one is the 10 SEER air conditioning, which is typical. although you can get 16 SEER, which is a more efficient model if you've recently purchased an air conditioner. So the geothermal heat pump is much more efficient than those. And then the brown on the very top is water heating. The nice thing about the geothermal heat pump is it doesn't just replace your air conditioner and your heater, it also replaces your water heater. And it does all three of those jobs more efficiently than the systems designed just to do one of those. Not to mention the maintenance cost. Instead of paying to maintain each of these systems, you're only maintaining one system. So there's cost savings there as well. Electrification rebates. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because this is low and moderate income eligible. But the bottom line here is that the federal government has allocated $263.6 million to Illinoisans to help Illinoisans electrify their homes based on the area median income. So in Wilmette, if you make $158.5 thousand a year, so just under 160 grand a year, you'd qualify under the 150% area median income, which means if you're doing an electrification project, you can cover half the price of it, up to the amount limited, up to $14,000 a year. These are the price limits. So if you were going to replace your gas stove with an electric stove or get a new electric stove, you would get up to $840 as a rebate, $1,600 for insulation and air sealing and ventilation. The nice thing about all of this is that the federal government did think ahead. If you're replacing your electric stove from a gas stove, you typically have to upgrade your electrical outlet behind your stove. Most gas stoves have an outlet that's 110 volt behind their stove, but an electric stove, most of them require a 220 volt. The federal government thought of that in advance, and they included up to $2.5 grand for electric wiring, which is fantastic. Additionally, the more you electrify your home, particularly if you have a whole older home, you may need to update your electric panel as well. And there's $4,000 available for that. And then $8,000 available as a rebate for air source heat pumps. Last note on these rebates is they're not yet available to the state of Illinois. The Department of Energy is currently working on guidance. The tax credits, they're already in play. That's federal money administered by the federal government. Very easy for them to manage. However, this rebate funds, they're federal money administered by the state of Illinois. So the federal government is at this time working on their guidance to direct the states on how to administer these programs. We expect that the Department of Energy will release this guidance this spring, at which point it may take the state of Illinois, specifically the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency's Office of Energy, a few months to work through that guidance, see if there's any leeway in that guidance and how they can determine how they want to administer for the state of Illinois, and then launch the program themselves. So this funding could be available as early as the summer or as late as this winter. So I want to spend a lot of time here on induction stoves because Beth told me there was a lot of people interested in that. First and foremost, these are not the old electric resistant stoves that we maybe grew up with. For example, my mom, when she was a kid, her family didn't have the money to pay for her to get haircuts, and my mom hated how her mom, my grandmother, cut her hair. And my mom's got extremely thick hair, so it just grew and was wild and dense, and she got it caught on fire from the gas stove. Very traumatic event for her. So when I was a kid, she wanted no gas stove in the house. So we had one of those old electric resistant stoves. They run by running electricity through a coil, which then heats up and heats your pot. Electric induction stoves, however, they work via magnets. So they're a very different system. They're much safer. There's no open flame, and because they work with magnets, you could turn them on high, put your bare hand on it, and you will not get burned. There's no heat at all because it works via magnets and there's no metal on my hand. However, if I'm wearing a wedding ring, that will conduct heat, and there's a chance that I get burned. So one note there is that you have to use metal pots and pans on induction stoves. So that's one drawback. Now I'm going to return to the slides for a moment. So induction stoves are the most efficient. they heat your food the fastest. So one study just came out. They took an old electric resistant stove, a natural gas stove, an electric induction stove, and it was able to boil 8 quarts of water in 9.3 minutes. It was able to use the least amount of electricity to get the job done. So they're the most energy efficient stove out there. They also give you the most control. One of the big complaints about electric resistant stoves and why a lot of chefs were pushing natural gas stoves, besides the fact that a lot of chefs were getting paid by the gas industry to advertise them, was that because an electric resistant stove, in addition to taking a long time to heat up, also took a long time to cool down. So if you were trying to boil your food and then you wanted to bring it down to a simmer real fast, the natural gas stove is faster. And you can look at the flame. Oh, the flame's high. I turn the dial, flame's low. Easy, quick control. But the electric induction stove actually gives you much faster control as well. The cooling down, as you can see, was only 9.5 minutes versus 16.3 minutes for the natural gas stoves. And then we've all been in the kitchen where a lot of the gas stoves are on, and the whole kitchen becomes unbearably hot. That's because a lot of the warmth, the heat coming from the natural gas stove isn't actually going into the pan, isn't going into the pot, cooking your food. It's expanding into the entire room. The electric induction stove are the most efficient, in part because most of that heat energy is going into your food rather than the kitchen, which is a nice perk as well. Last thing I'll say on the induction stoves is the health piece. So a lot of studies have been coming out recently, and there's been a lot of brouhaha in the news all about induction stoves versus gas stoves. The issue is that if you have a kid in the home, they're 41% more likely to develop asthma if you have a gas burning stove in your house. A gas burning stove has no filter. You're burning that natural gas directly in your home, releasing NO2, particulates, all other kinds of terrible indoor air pollution into your home. And we tend to think about air pollution as outside the home. We don't think about it as in the home. And some people say, oh, well, I have a fan above I have a fan above my stove, and I turn that on. But most vents above stoves don't actually connect outside. So you're not doing anything with that. You're making a lot of noise, and you're not actually taking those that air pollution and bringing it outside your home. So it'd be great if we could all get vents that actually work. But in the meantime, I recommend induction stove for many reasons. But protecting our kids, and just because kids are the most susceptible to it because they have younger, smaller lungs that breathe more often, doesn't mean that it can't impact you and me as well. So geothermal, talked about it a little bit already. It's another reason why these are so great is because they're completely protected from the elements. The loop field that's underground is protected from the elements because it's underground. There's no season underground. They are oftentimes guaranteed for 50 years, which is kind of crazy to me that someone trusts their work so well that they'll do it. And up to 49 years and 364 days later, if anything goes wrong, it's hurting their wallet to fix it. I think that's incredible. But because we're in Northern Illinois, we don't have any earthquake issues or anything like that. These systems oftentimes last over 100 years. And the most expensive part up front of geothermal heat pumps is the drilling. Then the heat pump itself typically goes, it always goes inside the home, typically in a basement, but not necessarily. So once again, it's protected from the elements, unlike your air conditioner, which is oftentimes exposed to the elements, exposed to the freeze, thaw cycle. So the nice thing is these heat pumps often last up to 25 years before they need to be replaced. I was just talking to a man in DeKalb who just celebrated 31 years with his geothermal heat pump. Hasn't paid anything except for a yearly maintenance fee just to get it checked out. So they're quite remarkable systems. So I wanted to put out the chart here on the right, just so people can get a sense. The big barriers to geothermal heat pumps is the upfront cost and the space. The upfront cost, We say $30,000, but there's a ton of variables here. The cost of labor is a big one. Your home's a big one. What type of model you want. So $30,000 is just a way to start imagining how much it's going to cost, and it does sound like a lot. But then let's talk about those tax credits, which everyone, regardless of your income, qualifies for. So that's the 30% IRA tax credit, which is the $9,000 you see in the second line, and then that $2,000 home energy tax credit. Additionally, ComEd just started a $9,000 rebate program as well. It's $1,500 per ton. So your average home will either have a 3 to 4 ton system. So that's about another $6,000 off. So once you do all the math, you're down to $13,000. And when you remember that this replaces your furnace, replaces your air conditioner, and it replaces your water heater, then it becomes very manageable. The estimated savings, if you remember from the previous chart that I showed, can be up to $1,750 a year. So that's a return on investment in 7.4 years, in addition to having an extremely comfortable system in your home. Excellent. Last thing I'll say on the geothermal heat pumps is that Citizens Utility Board is starting a program next month in April where we're going to do a group buy for geothermal heat pumps. We have a very strong consumer protection contract that all the installers will sign. And then if 50 tons are installed, everyone who's participating in the program, if 50 tons are installed across the program, everyone will get $50 back per ton as a rebate. If between 50 to 100 tons are installed, it'll go up to $100 per ton. And then if over 100 tons get installed, it'll be $150 per ton. So the nice thing is a vetted and accredited geothermal installer, a very strong consumer protection contract, and those rebates. And I'll put a link in the chat at the end of this with the website if anyone is interested in that program. One thing that's really important to talk about for energy efficiency is when do you use the most electricity, and how does that compare to when society uses the most electricity? So this I stole from one of my colleagues, and I think she's probably a little bit more typical. I think she's very typical for how people use electricity. Her roommate woke up just before 6 a.m., used a little bit of electricity, and left the home. But between midnight and that 6 a.m., the bare minimum electricity was being used. Then she woke up, made breakfast, got ready, started work. So you could see that her electricity use spiked. Then she was working from home, so it was above the nighttime use, but it wasn't too high. She was just on her computer. And then she took a lunch break, turned on the fan, and her energy use spiked a little bit. Then she got ready to go out. She left because she'd been cooped up in the home all day. And then she got back around 9 p.m., watched TV, turned on some lights, and it started again. That's not too different from how society typically uses electricity. Starting at noon, it starts to go up, particularly around 5 p.m. though. People are getting home from work, kids are coming home from school, people are making dinner, watching TV, turning on the lights, listening to music, etc. That's when demand is at its highest, which means that the electric companies have to provide more electricity. So they turn on what we call peaker power plants that are extremely expensive to run, typically fossil fuel based. And because they're so expensive to run, they only run them when they have to, when demand is the highest, usually starting around 5 p.m. until 10 p.m. That's kind of the high usage window for society and when electricity costs the most. Now, ComEd is not allowed to make a profit on the price of electricity. So what they do is they charge all of us the average price of electricity. So when it's midnight and electricity only costs them 2 cents, and when it's 5 p.m. and electricity might cost them 15 cents, they average that out so that they don't lose any money, but they don't make any money, and they charge us. And actually, I think right now it's about 9 cents a kilowatt hour. Why is this important? Peak time savings. This is a program that everyone should sign up. It's all carrots, no sticks. So what this is you sign up at comed.com/PTS for peak time savings. And anytime there's going to be a particularly high usage period, they'll text you, send you an email, alert you on your app, whatever you select. They'll say, hey, over the next few hours, if you reduce your electricity use compared to what you normally use, we'll give you that money back as a credit on your next bill. There's no sticks involved here though. So if instead you just want to watch the world burn, you turn on every single light, you turn on every single appliance, and you use even more electricity than you normally use, there's no consequences. This is an all carrot no stick program. So I recommend everyone sign up for it because it's nothing but goodness. They also have a program called hourly pricing. This program, though, has carrots and sticks. So instead of being charged the 9 cents per hour, that's the average cost, they're going to charge you the electricity for what it costs at that hour. So if you're using electricity at 2 a.m., they'll charge you 2 cents a kilowatt hour. If you're using electricity at 5 p.m., though, they are going to charge you that 15 to 18 to 21 cents, whatever it's going to cost them. So there is risk and reward with this program. If you have an electric vehicle and you can plug it in right before you go to bed, that's actually going to save you a ton of money if you're on this program. Or if you work night shifts or an alternative shift, this could be a really great program for you. However, if you're with the rest of us and you use electricity starting at 5 to 10 p.m., you might not see savings on this program. You might actually see more expenses. It usually averages out even for a typical person across the entire year. There can be months though where it's a little bit of a shock. So the nice thing is you can cancel this at any time, and on your next billing cycle, you'll revert back to the average. But it is worth really considering before signing up for this program. But it can make a lot of money for you specifically if you have an electric vehicle. This could be a really great program. And of course, this helps reduce carbon footprints because you're reducing the load on the grid, which means they don't have to turn on those peaker plants as much or as many of them, or burn as much gas or coal at them. So it's good for the planet as well. This is just a slot from September 12th. You can see in green were times where people would have saved money. And in fact, on September 12th, anyone on the program would have only lost money at 12 p.m. and actually been close, but a little bit under because it was 11 cents on this date for the rest of the day. However, on September 15th, you see particularly at 4 p.m., 5 p.m. timeframe, it gets almost 15 cents. And if the average cost was 11 cents, that whole window basically from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. Would have been the time where you're getting charged more for the electricity that you're using. Central AC cycling is a really great all carrots, no stick program. If you have an air conditioner, you sign up for this program, and what they'll do on particularly high demand periods is they'll adjust your air conditioner remotely so that the fan is still on. Otherwise, it is not running. They won't do this on weekends. They won't do this on holidays. And everyone I've talked to who's done this program hasn't even noticed that they ran it. And typically people get about $40 in bill credits from this program. And of course, if you are in the program and you do notice the temperature change and you want it to stop, all you do is you can get on your app or the website or call them, and they'll turn it back on for you. And they never run it for more than a few hours as well. So it's a great way to save a few bucks and to help the planet. Just a real fast note, potentially, you might know someone this helps. LIHEAP and IWOP are two really great programs that can help people receive funding to make home energy improvements or pay their bills. Real fast, talking about solar. Illinois is actually the best state in the Midwest and one of the best states in the entire nation to do solar. First thing though is we got to address a myth. A lot of people look outside and, oh, it's kind of dreary today, so Illinois is just not a great state. Maybe if I was in Nevada, it would be a great state. Well, I want to draw your eyes to Germany in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide. Germany produces more electricity from solar generation than any other country in the world per person. And if you look on the bar, purple and blue are less sunny places compared to the green, yellow, red, which gets more sun. So Germany gets less sun, except for the southern tip of Germany, than pretty much our entire country, except for Alaska. And Illinois, the entire state of Illinois gets much more sun than Germany. So if Germany can produce more electricity than anyone else from the sun, we can certainly do that. But why we're such a great state is in part because of the federal tax credit. Everyone, regardless of your income, if you install solar on your roof, you get up to 30%, sorry, you get a 30% tax credit, which is rollable over multiple years for it. So right there, there's 30% off. Then there's the state incentives. So the state solar renewable energy credits, starting about 4 to 6 months after you install solar panels, the state of Illinois will actually start paying you every single month for the amount of electricity that you generate. This isn't, I mean, you get to use your electricity, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the next bullet about net metering, but they're paying you for generating clean electricity. A little bit every single month for the next 15 years. That typically covers about 40% of the total cost of your solar panels. So that's 70%. Now, net metering. So when you produce electricity with your solar panels, most homes have that go directly into the grid, although it is possible to have it feed your home or your home battery first before it goes to the grid, or but most people have it go straight into the grid. ComEd then credits you. So every kilowatt hour that you produced, you get. And if you don't use as much as you generate, which is very often the case in the summer when the sun's out longer and your panels are generating longer. Let's just say, for easy math, you generated 100 kilowatt hours, but you only used 90. Those excess 10 will actually roll over to the next month, September. But September, we still get a lot of sun. So maybe once again, you generated 100 and you only used 90. So those 10 kilowatt excess and the 10 from August roll over again. So now you have 20 in the bank. This keeps going all the way until April, which is really nice because come the winter, when you're not generating as much, you might actually use more electricity than you're generating, in which case you could pull those excess credits that you produced in the summer. Then in April, there's a true up, and any excess that you didn't use, you lose. But April is kind of the perfect time for that as the sun starts to come out for longer and longer. Most people find that's fine. They don't actually lose anything, or they lose very little. And then it starts all over again in April, and any excess you keep. That is a very unique to Illinois program. That's not at all anywhere else in the Midwest. And I'm not sure if there's any other state that has exactly the same program. So because of these three incentives, there's no better state to do solar panels than the great state of Illinois. So solar sounds awesome, but it's not right for you. Maybe you need to replace your roof soon. Or you have some really great trees and there's too much shade, or you just don't like the look. Whatever your reasoning is, there's still a way that you could support solar and get the benefits from it. Community solar is that program. You sign up to sponsor a community solar project. This is typically somewhere else in the county or a neighboring county, and they're going to build a solar farm, or maybe they're putting an immense amount of solar panels on a nearby school, whatever it is. So you're now going to pay two bills. You're going to get your electric bill, just like you always do from ComEd, and you're going to see, oh, I got solar credits, $50 off. Fantastic. Then you're going to get that solar provider bill where they charged you $40 or $30. Every single community solar program is a little bit different, but here in Northern Illinois and ComEd territory, pretty much all of them save you $10 to $20. It's a little bit different if anyone is on a municipal energy company, like Naperville, for example, and we can talk about that offline if you're in that case, because it's a little bit different. Or if you have relatives down south, Illinois and Ameren territory, it's a little bit different for them. But here in ComEd, you're pretty much guaranteed $10 to $20 off while supporting solar panels in the community. So it's a fantastic program. If you sign up for it, you will likely get put on a waiting list. But ComEd did announce that earlier this year that they plan on doubling the community solar offers this year. So the sooner you get on the wait list, the sooner you get off the wait list, and you could start supporting community solar. There is a really great program called Solar for All that can provide free or almost free solar leases on income eligible homes or nonprofits and municipal buildings. More information can be found at Illinois Solar for All, illinoissfa.com. We can talk more about that if anyone has any questions. Electric batteries. This also, just like the geothermal and the solar panels, this also qualifies for a 30% tax credit as long as it has at least 5 kilowatt hour of capacity. This slide, ugly slide, lots of links in it. I just wanted to really make the point here that a lot of these incentives stack. Federal incentives can stack with state incentives, which can stack with utility incentives, and it's worthwhile checking all of them before you purchase to make sure that that you do qualify for all of them. I was just talking to a homeowner who had air source heat pumps installed in December, and if she just waited 1 month, would have gotten significant financial support from the federal government. And so that was very frustrating. So check all of these first, or give me a call, or shoot me an email, and we'll make sure that you're tracking all of these awesome incentives. With that, I believe we'll move on to the Q&A section. Although I will remind everyone that Citizens Utility Board is a nonprofit. Most of our revenue comes from donors like you. So this is the embarrassing time for me where I have to ask you for money. Just kidding. But if you want to throw me $5 at Citizens Utility Board, it helps immensely and we would appreciate it. But otherwise, that's our hotline. Happy to talk if you have any specific questions that we can't address today.
All right, David, thank you so much. Given that I've already seen that, there was still so much to learn. Really, really appreciate that. So we have questions in the Q&A, but also I've been jotting down my own notes, so I've got some questions too. The one thing I wonder, someone asked a question that I wanted to ask you. You talked a lot about geothermal heat pumps. What about air source heat pumps? What are those and how are they different?
Perfect question. So right now in the chat, I'm going to drop 4 links. The first one is to our Inflation Reduction Act guide. That's going to have all the specific details and all the federal incentives that come from the Inflation Reduction Act. Also our Better Heat guide. It's specifically focused on Chicago, so you'll see People's Gas, which is their gas company reference, but all that information is still really applicable to us here in Cook County. Grow Geo is the program that I already referenced for our geothermal heat pump group buy. But to your question, the air source heat pump blog, this is a blog I published, I think about a month ago, that has all the details for anyone who's interested in air source heat pumps, particularly if you are thinking seriously about it, the questions you should ask the contractors, how to find a good contractor, all that information. But to cover it really fast, air source heat pumps, just like geothermal, move heat around. That's why they're more efficient than furnaces. They can take heat from the outside and bring it into your home, or take the heat inside your home and bring it outside. More efficient than furnaces, unless it is about -5 degrees outside, in which case it becomes more expensive. Over the last 10 years, cold climate heat pumps have had immense technological improvements. If we were talking 10 years ago, I would say this is a great way to replace your air conditioner to save you money, but you still need a heater to heat your home because these are more efficient than air conditioners just on that side alone. But with cold climate heat pumps, you can actually keep your house sufficiently comfortably warm for the entire winter. That being said, it's not as great of a product as the geothermal, but geothermal has some of those barriers: upfront cost, and then you need enough space to get a drilling rig to drill on your yard. And so if you live in a condo and the entire building doesn't want to go in on a geothermal system, you're stuck with an air source heat pump option. So if you're going to go with the air source heat pump, verify that it's a cold climate model, which are rated to, I believe, -23 degrees. Being able to heat your home comfortably. That's only because that's as low as they certify. There's plenty of videos on YouTube where you can homeowners showing, the thermometer, it's -35 degrees outside, and in their home, they're perfectly comfortable. In fact, in Norway, 1 in 4 homes are heated by air source heat pumps. And then also Maine is actually seeing the largest adoption of heat pumps out of any state, I believe. And Maine is one of the coldest states in the continental US. So these things can absolutely work here in Northern Illinois without a backup heater, period. To do that, though, you need to insulate your home as much as possible. That's why I go back to that energy efficiency is the first step, no matter what. Making sure you have good insulation in your walls, making sure your windows are tight and preferably double or triple paned. All those things will help your heat pump keep your house warm and comfortable, but then also it might mean that you don't have to buy as expensive a heat pump. So, when you get a heat pump installed, you should always ask them to see the heat gain, heat loss calculation from the Appendix J. Don't worry about taking notes. That's all in the that blog that I posted there. But if you ask the installer, say, hey, look, I'd like to see your heat gain, heat loss calculator, that's going to verify that they're actually doing one. And not just looking at your furnace saying, okay, well, this was that, so we should just replace it, right? But if you make those, if you make them do their homework, and they'll put in all the information about your insulation and your windows, and they might actually be able to get you a smaller heat pump that's more efficient at heating your home, because too big of a heat pump can be a problem as well. But so that'll save you money up front, and then also make sure it's the right system for your home. But yeah, the bottom line is air source heat pumps, just like geothermal, except they use the outside temperature to heat your home. They also, one last thing I'll say on these heat pumps, particularly air source heat pumps. So with furnaces, we recommend people that you turn it down a little bit at night, because you're gonna be under the blankets anyways, you don't need your heat as high. Air source heat pumps, one of the reasons why they're more comfortable and more energy efficiency is they have these multiple variable fans, so they don't have to be on or off. They can be on at certain different levels. So they're actually more efficient at maintaining a temperature than getting to that temperature. So where a furnace will save you energy and money if you turn it down at night and then turn it back up in the morning, or turn it down when you're out of the home and then turn it back on to full when you're home. Air source heat pump, you should set it to the temperature you're comfortable at and leave it. And it'll be that's how it's the most efficient.
Great, David, thank you. I think a lot of people get stuck when they are trying to find a really high quality, experienced contractor to do it. This is pretty new technology, and I know that a lot of people just get stuck at that point. What suggestions do you have?
Really, really great point. So for air source heat pumps, I actually recommend going through the manufacturer, because the manufacturer has a lot at stake of maintaining their reputation. So some of the biggest manufacturers for the air source heat pump industry, and this is all in the blog, just so if anyone's worried about trying to capture notes, Mitsubishi is one of the largest, Daikin, Carrier, those tend to be the big three. Bosco is a really big producer of the dual fuel heat pumps. But if you go to their websites, and the links are in the blog I posted, they actually they certify installers. It's just kind of crazy. Is Beth, you and me tomorrow can start a HVAC company, and Illinois will say, great, your company, you and I can start installing these tomorrow, regardless of the fact that I'm assuming you and I definitely have no experience installing these myself. There's no requirements for certifications, which is a big problem. So when a manufacturer says, yes, this person is trained and certified with my product, that's a great, a great way for a consumer to feel much more comfortable that not only does this person know how to install heat pumps, they know how to install Mitsubishi heat pumps. And sorry, the next thing I'll say is that this is also true for geothermal. But I would also go through the Geothermal Alliance of Illinois on their website, which is also on the Grow Geo website that I put in the chat room. They accreditate companies. The nice thing is, and here's the big thing, if an air source heat pump or a geothermal heat pump industry says, hey, David Weaver, you're certified and trained, that's great. I start working for, Air Source Heat Pumps Incorporated. Now Air Source Heat Pumps Incorporated can say that they are certified by the company, even if I'm the only person, the only employee that they have that's certified. So this is a big issue is even when you go to these websites, these manufacturer websites, and they say, hey, go to this company, that company is certified. What they're saying is at least one person there is certified. That doesn't mean the person coming to your home is certified. And it's not like they have a badge that they show, yes, I'm certified. So that's why it's really crucial to ask them specific questions like, hey, are you certified in this? What level of certification do you? Are you platinum elite or platinum diamond preferred, or just the different levels of certification? And how many heat pumps have you installed? Can I talk to any consumers that you've installed a heat pump for? And asking those specific questions for that individual, and then checking them out on Better Business Bureau, seeing if there's any customer complaints. Sorry, last thing on Geothermal Alliance of Illinois, the nice thing is they don't accreditate a company unless 75% of their wrench turners are accredited, which is a nice change from how the manufacturers do it.
Okay, well, clearly everybody's got to do their homework, but that's kind of scary. And I think a lot of people, whether you're trying to buy solar panels or geothermal pumps, that's a tough one. So I'm running down the questions. Some of the questions, if we skip your question, it might be because it's so specific to you and your household that you should just contact David directly or Cub directly about that. We're going to try to choose just the questions that we think will be most interesting to most of the audience. So someone, a lot of us have brand new gas appliances, and some people have just moved into houses that have new gas appliances. How do you measure the kind of the waste of replacing a perfectly good appliance with a more energy efficient one? What guidelines do you have for that?
Yeah, great question. So I will say that there is a significant market for slightly used or still usable furnaces. So if you decide, you know what, I don't care that I got a new furnace 2 years ago, I'm going geothermal. Fantastic. We are worried about the embodied carbon, right? That furnace took a lot of natural resources to create. The nice thing is you could resell it, giving you some money back, but that means it'll go into a different home, probably a home that they weren't aware of, or the barriers to a heat pump were too high. So it'll go to good use, and those materials won't be wasted. The other thing is the 30% tax credit for the geothermal heat pumps, and the $2,000 tax credit. That's good for the next 10 years. So up until 2033, December 31st. So if you say, hey, I just did this a couple years ago, you could wait 9 years and then install it. And that way you are using that furnace, and then you can start seeing those cost savings and carbon emission savings. On the other hand, the air source heat pumps, that rebate money, if you're interested in it from the rebate money perspective, that's also good for the next 10 years or until it runs out. And I'm telling you, it's going to run out, and it's going to run out real fast. I would be pretty surprised if that money is still available in 3 years. Now, the tax credits for the air source heat pumps, those will be good for 10 years, but that's closer to the $2,000 level and not the $8,000 level. And ComEd also throws out rebates for air source heat pumps. And to put it into carbon footprint numbers, when you switch from natural gas to heating your home to electricity heating your home, you save about 1.1 metric tons of carbon emissions every single year. That's the equivalency of becoming a vegan. So significant savings. And if you're a Midwesterner who loves eating meat, probably a little bit easier for you to do.
Right. It reminds me a little bit of the debate about whether or not we should unscrew old incandescent light bulbs and replace them with LEDs. Is that wasteful? And it was 20 years ago that my son said, Mom, if you were worried about the planet, get rid of the incandescent light bulbs now and screw in the LEDs. So that, that's some thinking too about whether to delay it or do it right away. Someone had a specific question, an electrical panel upgrade rebate. Say you needed to do that because you were doing a lot of electrification. What is the rebate or the expected cost for that?
Yeah, so the rebate's up to $4,000, which is fantastic. Now, there might be a way that even if you don't qualify for the rebate, that you could still get some money from this. So if you're doing a geothermal project, well, the geothermal project is 30% off for the total cost of the geothermal system. And if you have your geothermal installer include an electric panel on the contract, you would still be able to get 30% off. That's the way I see it. That's the way I read it. That's the way I would do my taxes. I would highly recommend that everyone talk to their own tax consultant and not a nonprofit guy who has no training in taxes except what I read on the internet. But the way I read it and the way I've talked to a few people, that's one method. But specifically to answer your question, up to $4,000. Replacing your electric panel can cost anywhere from $2,500 to $8,000, depending on the size of the electric panel that you're replacing it with. I think I was looking at this the other day, and I think most people should expect it to be about $2,000 to $4,000 though.
Okay, David, what if you are needing to upgrade your panel to accommodate charging an electric vehicle in your garage?
Yes, so that's really where this more comes into play. The nice thing is if you're installing a heat pump and you already had an air conditioner, and it's a swap, you may not need it's a similar demand on the system, so you probably won't need it there. It's when you're starting to electrify everything, for an electric vehicle, your dryer, your stove, etc., that you might need it. Same price for your panel, same price.
Okay. So I know that some people choose to not upgrade to a 220 volt and they trickle charge an electric car if they're not driving a lot of miles. Most people find that a one-time switch to a 220 helps with an electric car. So now there's lots of questions about induction stoves. I just want to mention that we have a 5-burner gas stove and we have loved cooking on it until recently, when we realized how much it was actually impacting the environment and the air quality in our home. So a colleague of mine, I followed her lead and I bought a single burner induction hot plate. I'm going to show it to you here. You can get this. There's lots of different brands. This sits right on my counter, or you can actually put it on your stovetop. This is a Dux top. And because most of us never use those 5 burners, 80% of our cooking is done on a single burner most of the time. And so I feel really good about the fact that for about $120, I'm now cooking on an induction stovetop most of the time. So that's a really easy fix. I'm thinking that Go Green Wilmette might buy one for the Wilmette Public Library and have it on loan so people could test it, because a lot of people think it's weird and they're not sure they want to invest in it. So we're hoping that people will be open to that. So of course, there are the questions about the cooking pots. If you, not that any of us have magnets in the home, but if you happen to have a magnet, and if it attaches to the pan, it's going to work on an induction burner. But that is an issue. There are now lots and lots of pans that can work on the induction burner, or you can get an interface plate that can allow regular pans to work on it. But the bottom of your pans do have to be flat. And a lot of less, lower quality pans, the bottom isn't flat. So that answers that question. There's some pretty complicated questions that I think we're going to skip. So someone wants to know where did that go? If you're installing a heat pump, et cetera, do we have to wait until Illinois has completed their IRA guidelines before installing in order to get the rebates, or will it be retroactive?
Terrific question. And just one last note on everything wonderful you just said and showed. I'm going to be adding that to my slide. I've heard about them, but you're the first person I've known to try it out and cook soup on it today. So based on your review, I'm going to be adding that to my presentation, because that's fantastic. And I love the idea of having it at the library. That's very cool. So your question about the rebates. So I would say if you want to do a air source heat pump, which has rebates, whereas the geothermal, you don't need the rebates, all the tax credits are already in play. I would wait unless it's an emergency, right? Your furnace died today and there's still a chance your pipes could freeze this winter, in which case you should make the switch now and keep your receipts and hope that the rebates are retroactive. but I have no idea if the rebates are going to be retroactive. I've heard they will be. I've heard they're not going to be. And when it comes to the $8,000 rebate for air source heat pumps, that's not something I'm willing to risk until I see the fine print. So if it's not an emergency and you think your furnace will last through this winter and the spring, I would wait until we know exactly how those rebates are going to be administered. So I've also heard, I was talking to an entire Midwest organization. We were talking about how these rebates may be administered. There might be enough wiggle room in the federal guidance that states can make it more restrictive on these rebates, at least maybe for the first year, to try to help lower income get first offer of this money. I don't think that's actually going to happen, but until we see the fine print about these rebates, I think we use them for planning purposes, and we wait until we see the fine print.
Okay, thanks. Someone wanted to know what happens if someone doesn't have ComEd as their provider. Since most of the people here probably do have ComEd, I'm going to ask Carl if he would contact Cub directly to talk about his specific situation, if you don't mind. Lynette asked whether solar tax credits, can they be used the same year as energy efficiency tax credits? She tried to fill in an IRS form and both calculated credits go on the same entry line, and that you don't seem to be able to add them both. Does that ring a bell, or should she just talk to her tax attorney, tax consultant?
That's a really great question. My understanding is that you should be able to do both, but that doesn't mean that the form has been updated for both. So I would talk to your tax consultant and then let me know what they say, because I'm sure you won't be the first person, and we can add that. Additionally, if you send me an email, I will CC my colleague Marina, who's our specialist on solar. And we can try to, as you talk to your tax consultant, she can also be trying to answer your question at the same time.
Okay, thanks. Sterling, who is our tech support, Sterling, I know you're listening. We've had a couple people say that the chat is disabled and that participants cannot see the chat. I can see it. I think David can see it, but some of our participants cannot. Sterling, if you're able to help with that, that would be great. So someone wants to know, I've heard about this, how noisy geothermal heat pumps are. And is that something people should take into consideration?
Yes. So really not noisy at all. I think probably the myth you've been hearing is air source heat pumps. Air source heat pumps have a bad reputation for being noisy, particularly with some of the older models, and particularly if they're not installed correctly. The blog that I put in the chat that apparently none of you could see, and I apologize for that. Hopefully the chat will get re-enabled. Otherwise, I'll put it in the Q&A section. There's specific questions where you can ask your installer to make sure they put it in a place where it's not noisy. Particularly, it's typically with like rattling from nuts and bolts. Otherwise, it's typically about the same noise level as an air conditioner.
Okay.
And of course, the newer models are less noisy than the older models.
All right. So, yeah, people are asking to try to get those links shared. Many of you heard about this through the Go Green Will Met newsletter. I just copied his links, and the newsletter is going to go out Saturday, and I will be sure to put the links in the newsletter that's coming out Saturday. And I'll be able to put it in the description of the webinar when it gets posted to our YouTube channel. So that's two different ways you'll be able to find those, the blog links. Let's see. So a lot of the lots in Wilmette are quite small. And I have seen photos of what it looks like to dig a geothermal system, and it looks daunting and impossible on small lots. What are your thoughts about that?
That's a really great question. So that is very dependent on the driller. So most geothermal companies, they install the heat pumps themselves, but they have a relationship with a separate company that does all the drilling. Some geothermal heat pump companies do both. I really don't have a preference one way or the other with that. but it's going to depend on the driller and what size rig they have. The rigs sizes, some of the rigs are as big as school buses. Now the whole thing doesn't necessarily have to be in your yard, but enough of it, particularly if you're trying to get into the backyard. However, they also have drilling rigs that are smaller than a pickup truck. So they also have drilling rigs in Chicagoland that are you could break them down, walk it through someone's home, and then re-put it together on the other side. There's one company in particular that has that model, and because of the huge demand for it, they actually are planning on having 3 more systems, 3 more drilling rigs. I believe they said this July, in addition to their fleet already. So it is if you call a company, if you call a geothermal installer, and I always recommend you get 3 quotes. One of the issues might be, hey, we can't do this in your yard because our rig's too big. You can always ask them for who they recommend, who has a smaller rig. And then if they're not helpful, or before that, you could always reach out to me. The issue here is, right, because we're a nonprofit, I don't like to direct people to one installer, but I'll find a way to get you the information of who's got the small rigs. And the nice thing also is typically the smaller rigs are less expensive because they use less diesel to run.
There's a great video that I came across from the This Old House team where they talk about using a small rig on a small lot and make it possible. So that's, if you're interested in seeing what that looks like, This Old House, if you Google it, geothermal system, they'll have that up. Mike Bacon, he said, why does that rebates and tax credits seem to be so low for energy efficient window replacements? Because windows are so expensive and make a big difference.
I know that there's a lot of the difference between the House bill and the Senate bill were pretty significant. If you remember, I remember the very day that Senator Manchin announced that he was going to support this program. I was visiting a friend, and I was literally lamenting about how it was never going to get passed because Senator Manchin wasn't going to vote yes on it. And we weren't going to see a big climate bill from the Congress. And we were lamenting about it. I got the text. I looked at my phone. Boom. Senator Manchin had announced he was going to vote for it. But, not to get political, because we are a nonpartisan organization, compromise was necessary. And, I don't know who argued for what, but I think you're right. Ideally that would have been much higher. I would have loved to see roofs involved as well, because that's one of the biggest barriers to solar panels is people who need to replace their roofs.
Absolutely. There are some companies that are specialized in roofing and solar together. If you or someone needs a new roof, that is absolutely the time to combine those two. Find a company that does the two, you'll save money. That's really important one. Somebody wanted to know, okay, so we have a lot of condo and apartment owners, and they sometimes, especially apartment owners, they can't be changing their appliances. Any other tips for them?
Yes, absolutely. First and foremost, talk to your landlord. And there might be someone in the middle here, but if you're a renter, you probably qualify for more of the rebates than the landlord does. So there's a way here where you get the rebates. You install this new high energy electrifying energy efficiency appliance for the home. You pay for it, you get the rebate, but instead of, you get the equivalent money off on your rent, right? It's a win for you. It's a win for the landlord. It's a win for the planet. That's fantastic. I've actually had landlords call me asking me how they can get this not only on their own home, but also their lots that they're managing. And we've had these conversations, and I think, finding winning solutions where everyone wins is always the best way forward. And then I'll also say is, just talking to another guy, he lives in a townhome, and his furnace was about to go, which is why he called me. And so he's now talking to every single townhome in the building, and they're going to do a large geothermal system for all of them. which is fantastic. Something we don't often think about is that geothermal can be a community solution. It doesn't have to be an individual solution. You could, to the College of Lake County, 70 to 80% of their buildings are all on one geothermal system. Loyola University in Chicago has a geothermal system that's for multiple buildings. And Citizens Utility Board, CUB, we submitted a grant to the DOE back in November. Hopefully we'll hear back soon to do a pilot 1 square mile on the west side of Chicago where every single building, whether it's industrial, commercial, residential, in that square mile would be hooked up to one massive underground geothermal system for all of them. So it can be a community solution. So if you're in a townhome and you got good relationships with your neighbors, it's a great option.
Wow, that's awesome. I want to just repeat a couple of the facts I thought was amazing. Gas stoves waste 70% of the energy. That blows my mind. And that all of that is combusting in our homes. I have asthma, my 3 children have asthma, and boy, did that hit hard when I realized that. Also, I read a study that a significant amount of the air pollution from gas stoves happens when the stove is off. Have you heard that?
Yes, that's something I should have hit harder. Thank you for bringing that up. A lot of us think, oh, it's not on, it's not emitting any gas. That's not true. It's always. They just did a really interesting study in California. Correct me if I'm a little bit off on these numbers, but they tested, 450 something random gas stoves of different manufacturers and different homes and different communities, and every single one of them was emitting even when it wasn't on. Every single one of those. So that's not to say that every gas stove emits when it's not on, but there's a high chance that your gas stove is releasing toxins and pollutants into your air, even when it's not turned on. And the nice thing is, there's a $120 option if you're just going to make one switch for most of your cooking, which is fantastic, as Beth brought up. The nice thing is, switching all 4 of them, new induction stoves on the affordable end is $1,100 all the way up to $6,000 if you want all the gadgets. But $1,100 to replace a stove that's going to last you 20-30 years is, for me, that's a huge relief when you think about kids and asthma and what you're breathing every single day, because we spend 90% of our time indoors, more in the winter, especially if you're working from home. That's the place you want safe.
Yeah. Okay. So both my children have just moved into homes that have gas fireplaces. Now I'm worried about those. Tell me about, you know anything about the sort of gas fireplaces?
Yes. My one of my high school friends just moved into a house that has a gas stove, and he's so close to cutting his gas bill completely. He's got electric heat. He's got electric stoves. The only gas in his entire home is his fireplace. So we've been doing research on how he's going to get this fixed. And, it could cost between $400 to, $800 to transition it to a wood burning stove. Depends a lot on labor, and Wilmette, labor is going to cost a little bit more than it's going to cost where he's at. But it is doable without destroying it. And the other thing is, I think most people who have gas fireplaces maybe use it once a year on a romantic occasion kind of deal. And the thing is, if you're only using it once a year, but you're at risk 365 days a year, you can tap your gas without replacing your gas fireplace. You can leave it exactly how it is. Probably looks nice in the living room. And there's no gas going to it because you've capped your gas pipe.
Yeah, but unless you do that, the gas is, those logs are probably some sort of perhaps plastic material with all the gas on. So that's a new thing I have. Okay, so it's 8:25. There's so much still to talk about. What if you have an old gas dryer, clothes dryer? What are your thoughts about replacing that with an electric clothes dryer? Or an electric humidifier, clothing dehumidifier, which apparently is the next generation.
So ComEd has, depending on what type of electric dryer you get, I think they have like a $50 rebate all the way up to a $200 rebate, depending on the dryer. So ComEd's going to give you money. The federal government's going to give you money. I think it was $880. So that's significant right there if you qualify for the rebates from the federal government. Otherwise, ComEd is for everyone. So there's money to help you do that. The other part of it, of course, is typically it's 110 volt, and you may need a 220 volt. So you might have to do some electric wiring there. But if you qualify for the rebates, there's money for that for you. That's a great option. You can also use a drying rack, clothesline. Those are options as well. It takes a little bit more time, but your clothes will last longer, and you won't be using that carbon footprint. So my recommendation from the convenience perspective is to get it replaced.
All right. One more question, because I always like people to hear about this. Tell us why we should be replacing old refrigerators with more energy efficient models, even if they're still running.
Yes. So, I think we all have a good sense of, I don't know, I think it's a cultural Midwestern thing to be very frugal, or at least it was in my family. And, even today with my dad comfortably retired, my mom comfortably retired, if you leave a light on in a room you're not in, you're still getting yelled at, which I love. But sometimes being frugal means buying new things, particularly when it comes to these old appliances. Old appliances, as they get closer to the end of their useful life, they tend to suck up more and more electricity to try to achieve the same level of standard. So, if it's a fridge or a freezer chest in your garage that you keep, it needs to still keep your food cold. So it's just going to start sucking more and more electricity. And in fact, sometimes that's the biggest culprit. We get people who come to us with their energy bill, and they're like, what is going on? All of a sudden, my bill is $50 higher every single month. I haven't added anything. No one else is joined. Like, I have no idea what changed. Nothing. I don't know anything that changed. So we try to talk through things. And oftentimes it's, oh, you have an old refrigerator from the 90s. Or you have a deep freezer from the 90s, and it's on its last legs, and it's sucking up more electricity than a new one would cost. And a lot of times, especially if it's going to charge you $50 a month, within a few months or a year, you've paid for the new one already. The nice thing you could do to test this is there's an appliance called a kilowatt.
That's available.
Kilowatt. I put it in the chat.
It's available at the Wilmette Library. You can check them out.
That's awesome. So it's a little appliance that you can take your refrigerator, your TV in, what have you. You plug it into the appliance, then you plug the appliance into the wall, and it'll tell you how much electricity it's using right then. And a lot of them can also tell you how much electricity it uses over a 24-hour period. Which is really nice, because then you can put that into a calculator, charge it by how much you're getting charged from ComEd for a kilowatt, and you could say, oh wow, this cost me how much every single day, and then you can compare it to a newer model and determine if now's the right time to make the change.
Right. Awesome. Great. And if you have an old refrigerator in your basement or your garage, the really important thing is, do you really need to replace it? Occasional bag of ice, to heat pop for a party is a great alternative to having a second refrigerator. David, it's 8:29 and we have a hard stop at 8:30. So I want to thank you for being so full of so much good information. Great to have you here, and great to know for our audience that you are available at CUB. You and your colleagues are there. This is what you all do 24/7. And we're all grateful that CUB exists and is there for us. So to the audience, please know this will be posted to our YouTube channel by tomorrow. Please do us a favor. Tell someone else about how much you learned and try to convince somebody else to watch, because I think everyone who's watching is going to make at least one change. So thank you for spending your evening with us. David, really appreciated you being our speaker, and hope to stay in touch with you.
Thank you so much.